In today's video, it's the continuation of my story about my recent travels along the coast of Maine on American Eagle, the brand new cruise ship from American Cruise Lines. Today we're in Bar Harbor, a very lovely part of Maine, and I tour Acadia National Park. Then it's on to Rockland, where I got some wonderful aerial shots with my drone. And the next day in Camden, some of my favorite views of the entire trip as we cruise along the coast of Maine. It's day 3 of my cruise on American Eagle, and the ship is at anchor in Bar Harbor. And how about that sunrise this morning? Every day of this cruise has been a visual delight. After a nice breakfast, we boarded the ship's tender, which took us ashore, and then we hopped onto one of the ACL buses for a tour of Acadia National Park. The first stop on our tour was the top of Cadillac Mountain. This is the highest point along the Atlantic shoreline of North America, and they like to say that this is the first place in the continental U.S. to see the sunrise each morning, although that's only true for a portion of the year. In any case, the views of Frenchman Bay are spectacular, and looking to the east, the views of the Atlantic were great too. We had plenty of time on top of the mountain for taking in the views and getting lots of photographs, and it was a very short and easy walk from the bus to this spot with all the views. Eventually, we got back on the bus to continue our tour of Acadia National Park, and our next stop was a spot known as the Wild Gardens of Acadia. I would describe it as a botanical garden crossed with a nature preserve. It's a very peaceful little spot, a great place to take a little walk, and it was one of the few places I noticed a little bit of fall color in some of the trees. This trip to Maine was in the second half of September, and that turned out to be just a few weeks before the fall colors really came out in Maine this year. I think October is when the fall colors really hit here, but the good thing about being here in September was that the weather was still fairly warm, which actually made it a really great time to visit. The next stop on our bus tour of Acadia National Park was a beautiful little spot on the coast known as Thunder Hole. And you are about to see and hear why they call it that. There's a natural opening in the rocks, an inlet, where the waves push the water in. And when that water gets pushed up against the end of the inlet, it makes a sound that's a lot like thunder. Check it out. After our morning tour of Acadia National Park, some people headed back to the ship for lunch, but I stayed in town and had lunch at one of the many restaurants downtown since I was going to be doing another tour in the afternoon. My afternoon tour was a nature cruise on one of these tour boats you see here, and I just love being on a boat, so a scenic boat tour sounded like a really great way to spend the afternoon. At certain times of the year, you'd see whales on a boat tour like this, but not at this time of the year. What we did end up seeing quite a lot of was bald eagles. We saw them at several different points on our boat tour of the area. We also got a really nice look at Acadia National Park from the water, including Thunder Hole, which we had visited during our morning bus tour. And we got a nice look at another beautiful Maine lighthouse, too. So it was just a really good way to spend the afternoon on the water, on a tour boat, enjoying the beauty of the coast of Maine. And once our afternoon boat tour concluded, we headed back to the comforts of our floating hotel, American Eagle, which was waiting for us with cocktails and dinner, and it would soon be raising the anchor and sailing overnight to our next destination. When I woke up the next morning, our ship was anchored off the coast of Rockland, Maine, and it was a really beautiful morning. Here's a little montage of some of the views from my drone that morning in Rockland. Later that morning, I took an excursion to the nearby town of Owl's Head, where they have a very cool museum that is all about aircraft, automobiles, motorcycles, engines, pretty much anything transportation related. It was started by Tom Watson and Jim Rockefeller. Watson was the son of the founder of IBM. Rockefeller was the son of the president of what eventually became Citicorp. So there was a lot of old money involved in putting this collection together, and it is quite a collection. If you love old cars and trucks or old airplanes, you'd really enjoy walking through the Owl's Head Transportation Museum. So that this video doesn't end up becoming too long, I'm only showing you a few highlights of their collection. There was a lot more than what you're seeing here. We also visited the Farnsworth Art Museum, which had a spectacular collection of paintings, as well as a lot of different types of contemporary artwork. Again, there was way more to see in the museum than I have time to show here in this video. And to round out this museum day, I also visited an interesting maritime museum known as the Sail, Power, and Steam Museum, which is located on the site of a historic old shipyard in Rockland. They've got a fascinating collection that celebrates Rockland's maritime and industrial heritage, and I got a kick out of seeing some G-scale model trains on a track along the ceiling of the museum. But the highlight of the entire day in Rockland was an old-fashioned lobster bake. They set up this huge tent just for us, the passengers from American Eagle, and every one of us got our own Maine lobster to enjoy for lunch. They cooked them the old-fashioned way in these pots above a wood fire, and it was quite a party they threw for us. They had a band playing, and it truly was one of the most memorable parts of the entire cruise. What an experience to come to Maine and attend a good old-fashioned lobster bake. Our ship actually spent 2 days anchored off the coast of Rockland. On our second day, which was day number 5 of our cruise, we boarded a bus for a trip down the coast to the beautiful town of Camden, Maine. In fact, during a week of visiting one beautiful place after another, Camden was probably the most beautiful of them all. Here's a little montage of gorgeous aerial shots of Camden from my drone. If you're interested in booking a cruise with American Cruise Lines, I want to suggest that you use the services of my travel agent, Caitlin Gallagher. She has been fully certified by American Cruise Lines, and she knows things that'll help ensure you have a great trip. Also, Caitlin knows the right cabins to book on these new Eagle-class ships so that you not only have a great week aboard, but you also don't pay too much for your cruise. Visit Caitlin's website at www.amburntravel.com. While we were in Camden, I went on a fun little excursion on this lobster boat, the Lively Lady, where we learned all about setting lobster traps. It was an interesting introduction to the way these fishermen in Maine catch lobsters, a process that hasn't changed much over the last 200 years. We also got a nice look at the Curtis Island Lighthouse and some sea lions soaking up the sun. And that is where I'm going to pause this story for now. There's going to be a third video in this series that I'll release 1 week after this one, where I'll pick the story up in our next destination, Boothbay Harbor. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button to let YouTube know that this is a good video that they should recommend to other people. And leave me a comment to let me know your thoughts about this video. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider becoming one of my patrons. For as little as $1 a month, you can help cover the cost of all the camera gear, the drones, and the video editing equipment that it takes to make videos like this. Head over to patreon.com/JimZim for information about becoming one of my patrons. I'm putting links up on the screen to 4 other videos I've made so far about this cruise on American Eagle. Click on one of those thumbnails if you're up for watching another good travel video. I'm Jim Zim. Thanks for watching.